Linda and I got in a little exchange with a couple of the reporters from the National Post. They denied that there was increasing, but generally, no one in the reality-based community disputes those numbers. In fact, Linda wondered, what are they going to dispute next? Global warming? Anyway, so that's the second premise. I'm going to have to go. I'll go really quickly through these next ones. The third premise is that, so you got to agree, the first two are, equality matters, and we've had this dramatic increase in inequality at the high end. So if you're with me so far, here's the third premise. The causes of that increased inequality, some people say, well, the effect of all that income going to the rich, the top 1%, it's an inevitable result of the way the world is changing. It's just a result of technological changes. It's the result of globalization. It's the result of the increased premium that skilled workers are able to demand. But we argue that's just wrong in the book. In fact, we argue instead it's the result of a long series of deliberate policy changes in government, policies that overwhelmingly favored the very rich. And those changes in turn were the result of increasingly sophisticated, well-financed, well-organized efforts by the corporate and financial sectors to in effect tilt government policies in their favor and thus favor the very wealthy. And those changes including the deregulation of the financial industry, changes in corporate governance policies that allowed CEOs to basically set their own pay, changes in industrial relations policies that weaken labor unions, and most importantly changes in the tax system that changes dramatically changed the wealthy. In short, inequality has nothing to do with the dictates of the market economy. It's the result of people at the top rigging the rules to their benefit. And they got government to stack the deck in their favor and then hire people like those working for the Fraser Institutes to try to tell other people it's just the natural working of the marketplace. In the book, we explain inequality as a function of power, sustained by politics, and implemented as policy. That's our third. The fourth premise is that the wealth and income of the rich is simply undeserved. I mean, they might argue, yeah, it's true. There's all this wealth going to wealthy people, but they deserve it. We argue there's no moral theory that would justify the vast incomes they receive. Indeed, given the enormous advantages and freedoms that income and wealth provides, this skewed distribution of income presents Canada with its most pressing, or one of its most pressing, moral issues. Those opposed to the use of progressive taxes often argue as an instrument for redistributing income, argue that there's something inherently fair and just about the market distribution of income. That is, they start with the assumption that those top income people somehow deserve their good fortune. And they usually state that position rhetorically, something like, it's my income, I earned it in a free market, the government has no right to take and redistribute it to others. There's two things that invalidate that position. One is, it's just conceptually incoherent. And there's no such thing as a free market. And the second one, even if it were conceptually coherent, it does not rest on a persuasive or any theory of distributive justice. First, it's conceptually incoherent since there's simply no such thing as a free market. And the rules of property contract and property law and contract law within which individuals earn their income, in fact, are as coercive, as politically motivated, and have even greater distributional consequences than the tax system. We lawyers call this the baseline problem. That is, there's just a whole bunch of laws out there. All of them are the result of political decisions, and so you can't sort of say, well, we're going to look at these laws and regard this as being our baseline as to what people are entitled to, and then any laws after that are taking away something they're entitled to. They're all laws that govern our interaction with one another. Property laws, contract laws, all have distributional consequences, all are politically motivated. And so that it's just incoherent to try to argue that somehow people have entitlement to income they earn before the application of the tax system. I mean, what you're entitled to is what you've got after the application of all of those laws, including the tax system. And so that there is actually a very nice section in the book on this, if I may say so, that that I think makes this point sort of clearer than I've seen it made before, and it's just a profound point. But it has to do with, for example, again, I don't mean to pick on, but I mean, here's a real simple example, like lawyers. We restrict admission to law schools, we give them monopoly over the practice of law, we don't allow immigrants to come in and join the law society and compete with them. We give them all this monopoly protection over the practice of law, and which means that the practice of law tends to be much more lucrative than it otherwise would be. There's no question, as a result of all those regulations, lawyers make a lot more money than they would if we just let it rip. And again, there might be good reasons for those laws. We're protecting consumers of legal services and so on, but it's odd to argue that somehow that gives them a moral entitlement to that income, and that somehow then when you impose a tax on them, you're redistributing. I mean, we redistribute it out through all these regulations. And so all we're now trying to do is achieve a distribution of income that we think is morally acceptable through the tax system. We have this wonderful example in the book from Michael Caine in England. England, you might know, raised their top income tax rate from 40 to 50, and Michael Caine said he's going to leave England if they do that. He's got all this hard-earned income that he makes as a movie star. He's going to leave England if they try to take his hard-earned income away from him. We point out he only got that income because of government regulations. He only got that income because we got copyright laws. That means when he makes a movie, other people got to pay to view it. And so he only got it because of government regulations, and we point out that if it wasn't for the copyright laws, he'd probably be making as much as any good porn movie actress or actor would. Because in the porn business, they don't enforce the copyright laws. And so some porn people, that people tell me, make a decent living, but none of them are millionaires, or none of them as much as Michael Caine makes. And so he only makes that money because of government regulations. We've got a little chapter called "The Porn Industry is the Only Real Free Market." And so some people say, well, yeah, but if you didn't give them copyright protection, there wouldn't be innovation in movies and so on. I don't know about that, but people do tell me that in the porn industry there's lots of innovation and lots of but the whole point is just that there's a whole body of rules and protections that account for people's income, and it's odd to say, oh yeah, but as a result of those, I have some entitlement you're taking away. And there's just, I'm not going to. We go through these. We argue also in the book that generally these people don't deserve the income they receive because most of it is just due to luck. The accident of being born into a wealthy family, the accident of being born into a wealthy country. Pure accident. I mean, the one thing you've got no control over is who your parents are. And yet we know that has just a dramatic effect on how much income you will eventually earn. Just a dramatic effect. The good luck of investing in the right stock, the good luck of remaining able. So we argue that, we should give you some examples. Read the book. These people, they're just, they're like they flip the coin 10 times and think they're clever. I mean, like if 1,000, no, here's the point I was going to make. If 1,000 people flipped a coin, right, flipping a coin, I think 3 of them would flip 10 heads in a row. But just pure, absolutely pure luck, right? But some of these fancy billionaires who flip 10 think it's due to their intelligence or hard work. It's just pure luck, brute luck, and also much of it depends. So, okay. Here, the fifth premise, now I'll go through 1 minute on each one of these. The fifth one is this: they don't deserve it. Furthermore, the amount of income that they get is like having that relatively small number of rich people in a society is not a benign characteristic of a society. It greatly diminishes the quality of life of everyone else in the society. And we cite all sorts of studies that show that having that small group of very rich people up there leads to a reduction in social mobility. Indeed, if you're interested in social mobility, you have to be interested. Some people say, well, let's not worry about how much the rich are getting because people can sort of move up and down the income scale, and we've got lots of social mobility. In fact, the evidence is that if you've got a high degree of inequality at the top end, it reduces social mobility in the society. Indeed, the United States, which has about the highest degree of inequality among the industrialized countries, also has the lowest degree of social mobility. Indeed, if you were in the United States today and and you were interested in pursuing the American dream, my advice to you would be, move to Norway. You will not get it in the States. Much more social mobility in equal countries. Unequal societies have a great increase in criminal violence and other forms of social disorder, reduced physical and mental health, reduced life expectancy, just a long litany of problems that are caused by this enormous inequality. We also, of course, contribute the financial crises to the inequality. Most importantly is just that it diminishes our democracy. And in the book we go through all the subtle processes by which wealthy individuals are able to exert undue influence on public policy decision making. The sixth premise is that the pursuit of a more equal society is not inconsistent with high levels of economic well-being. Lots of reasons for supporting that provided in the book. A quick answer, just look around the world. You will discover those societies which are most equal, like the Nordic countries, also tend to be the most economically competitive. You will also, or look at the historical evidence. You find that in those periods of Canadian history, when we had the greatest degree of equality, we also had the fastest rates of economic growth, lowest rates of unemployment. We provide, again, in the book, lots of other evidence about that. And then finally, what we argue in the book is basically that the last premise is that if we really want to do something to reduce the inequality in our society, particularly the amount of national income going to that, we have to naturally tackle it on all sorts of fronts, but you got to use the tax system. And we make an argument as to why the tax system is the most effective policy instrument. Among other things, you can target it at the top 1% very easily through progressive income taxes and wealth taxes. It's much more. It can be effective immediately. Some people say, "Oh, well, let's just improve our educational system." Well, come and see me in 40 years. Maybe we can improve it. It will make a difference, but by then it'll be too late. So we say, look, we should operate on all fronts to remove inequality, but the tax system is essential. So in conclusion, the argument in the book is not about bashing the rich simply because they're rich. It's about deciding in what kind of a society Canadians aspire to live in. And the social contract we think that most Canadians are in favor of is one that is premised on the assumption that each of us is born with an equal moral worth and entitlement to dignity and to the rights of citizenship, that choices individuals make as citizens, participating and voting in democracies, democratic procedures are as important as the choices we make as consumers, that our greatest achievements as a society are the product not of individual endeavor, but of community and collective efforts, that freedom involves the power to make choices about how one lives, that most people are essentially alike, with minor differences that are often interesting, that all Canadians, rich or poor, have a shared destiny, that we're all in the same boat together, and that the quality of our lives should not be measured by the lifestyles of the rich, but by the legitimate aspirations of every individual, and that is both just and feasible, that everyone is entitled to a fair share of what we collectively produce, but only a fair share. Now, those who oppose our proposals we make in the book will likely say that lower taxes on the rich is not a matter of political choice, but an economic imperative. That's profoundly wrong. It's contradicted by theory, by empirical evidence, but most importantly, simply by our experience and our common sense. Canadians still do have a good deal of choice in deciding what kind of society that they want to live in, and choosing that society remains a political and deeply moral issue. Lately, the business interest has lamented the terrible legacy we're leaving in our children in the form of a national debt. In fact, the much worse legacy we are in danger of leaving them if we continue to allow the corporate agenda to be implemented, if we continue to diminish the progressivity of our tax system and the role of government in our lives, is a society in which resources are distributed in an obscenely unequal way, a society in which the relevant standard of living of the average family continues to stagnate, a society without a sense of itself or a sense of its collective responsibility, and a society in which the economic elite is ever more able to defend itself politically. That, the book argues, would be a truly unjust, a truly irresponsible legacy for us to leave to the next generation. Hopefully someday, because of books like this and work being done by the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives and other resources, Canadians will once again demand that their political parties have enough heart, have enough intelligence, and have enough courage to stand up and openly confront the power of the plutocracy. Thank you very much.